Welcome to Pagan Crafting. Today we have a DIY winter mushroom decor and ornaments. This year's fashion trend is throwing down mushrooms. So mushrooms are my favorite. So we're going to forage for some items for lichen, for moss, for goodies. We're going to use some polymer clay, some stamped paper, and we're going to design with moss and some clips, some beautiful ornaments and decor mushrooms for this Yule season. I'm Cara, your host with Pagan Crafting. Join me today as we make some super cool ornaments. Okay, for this project, the supplies we're going to need are, I grabbed some white tissue paper and I stamped it, and I used some walnut stamp color, and I do hope it bleeds a little bit. If you don't want it to bleed, then you're going to use waterproof stamping medium. So when you lay down your glue, it's not going to run. I have some napkins here. I hope some of the ridges will show through and we'll find out. We're going to need some styrofoam balls here, some saran wrap, as well as some Mod Podge glue and polymer clay. All right, let's get down to business here. We're going to start taking these little styrofoam balls and cutting them directly in half. Depending on how big you want your mushroom cap, you could always cut them a little bit longer on one side, discard part of it, and have a larger mushroom cap too. Now that those are all done, we are going to wrap them in saran wrap. These are going to protect them as well as help prevent from sticking and easier to take off the mushroom cap later on. Stick with me and I'll show you what I mean. So cutting some pieces of saran wrap out, we're going to wrap one of the half pieces of styrofoam balls. Now we're going to wrap that nice and tight. Give it a little twist at the end and it helps secure that. Again, the length of your cap determines on how big of your mushroom cap or how long you want it to be. So I'm going to quickly wrap all these before we go to the next step. Again, just throwing down a little twist at the bottom. And we're good. Now that those are all done, depending on what color napkins you're going with, our theme this year is aquamarine and burgundy with a touch of red. So I'm going to be using these colors here. I'm taking off the excess white because I really want the burgundy to pop through. If you have any issues pulling off the back of your napkin, tape, just a little piece of masking tape or clear tape, and it pulls away super easy for you. There, so when the light shines through my little cap, I want it to show more burgundy than white. I'm using some matte finish Mod Podge for this one here, and I'm going to water it down with a bit of water. And I put a little too much in, so I poured a bit back, and I do want it thinned out because I want to have it like a consistency if you're making paper mache. Then you're going to paint a thin coat on your half mushroom head, your cap, and you're going to start using some, I'm just using some clear, or not clear, but white tissue paper. I cut them up in little pieces, and another way you could do is rip it, and then if there's the ripped edges along the outskirts of the mushroom will look super cool, but I'm a little impatient because I'm an Aries, so I decided to cut them all instead into little pieces, and then I'm going to trim my mushroom cap. Both ways will look equally cool. Just depends on how much time you feel like digging on. Now, I am ripping the burgundy paper here, the napkins, and just I want to now create an entire area that's going to cover so I have no white shining through. Now the reason why I did the white tissue paper first, a nice light tissue paper, is to build up kind of a house base, to build up a frame before I put on the burgundy napkins. So you want to make it a little bit thicker, a little bit sturdier. I'm just doing a little preemptive strike, trimming off some little excess edges on that one, and we're going to rinse and repeat and do the rest of them. Now for the next one here, I already have the white tissue paper on it. I see that I needed one more spot there. Again, building up the white tissue layer first and then moving on to the stamped bit. Now I used a walnut oxide stamp, and I do hope it runs a little bit so it'll give me kind of a vintage look I'm hoping for. And this is just words stamped on it. It looks like a book page. Again, if you don't want this to run, then just use waterproof stamping medium so the glue doesn't run the ink for you. Now while those are drying, I have some leftover straws that I would use to make any type of crafts, but I actually use them to make the cake pops, so they are a little bit thicker, a little bit wider. I've cut them down to about 2.5, 3 inches, and I can cut them down smaller if need be. But I'm also considering that the cap is going to cover some of that too, as well as some of the moss at the bottom. I'm using here foam clay. Oh, the forbidden toffee. Oh, I love this stuff. It is so cool and so easy to use. You look at it, how it stretches out. So I'm just working it a little bit here. I want it nice and smooth, and I got a little distracted here, so please pay no mind. But this is how cool this stuff is. I'm working it nice and tight now. We're going to take off little pieces of balls at the end, and we're going to squish them down, and we're going to wrap them around the straw. So rolling out a nice little circle and using something to squish it down with. I'm using the back of a clear stamp, folding it out, and I'm going to wrap the straw around that because I want to put the lights up through the straw in a little while. Now making a little bottom bit there, working on that because that's where we're going to add to some moss. We're going to do some dry brushing there. Having another little piece here out of just a little ball and made it very, very thin. We're working on a little veil here. Pinching it out with your fingers, work it nice and smooth. Now any of this with foam clay, when it dries, you can sand it quite nicely. Grabbing some scissors, adding some ruffles. I'm actually legit cutting right through into this. And then just play with it. I am adding some free form to it. Some of it will stay cut, some of it won't. I want it very freestyle. Okay, we got the full 24 hours dry on this now. So with the aid of the saran wrap, we're going to give it a little bit of tug on the edges. A little bit of just pull it apart a little bit, and the styrofoam cap should pop right out. If you let it dry enough, it'll be fully dried inside. If not, you may feel a little bit of glue here. Just give it a couple more hours. And there we have it. So again, you're just going to wiggle the saran wrap a little bit, so that way it doesn't break on you. If you did put enough layers of the white tissue paper down first, this should be sturdy for you, and it'll still be able to see through when you have the lights. So I made 6 of each. And if you decided to tear the pieces, it'll actually give a nice little edging of the teared look around the bits. But I decided to cut mine, so I'm just going to trim off my little mushroom caps. They turned out so beautifully. I'm so excited to see these ones lit up and see how they look. Now you could use any type of napkins you like, or tissue paper, or if you just want to go for a solid color, you could use any color there. Now this is my stand that I use my Ukrainian Easter eggs on. They have nails sticking up, so I thought that was a perfect little rack for my mushroom stems. They dried beautifully. Usually it's 1 to 2 days to dry, but because it was such a thin layer, it wound up being 24 hours only. And I'm just cleaning out the bottom edge here and I'm going to trim off the top to make a flat surface to glue on the mushroom cap head here. And the straw does move freely within this piece. So if you need to just push out the straw, then tuck it back in, it's quite easy to do. And you don't really need to even glue them down either. Right, so now that those are all done, they're all trimmed off of all the excess glue. I have this piece here that I actually got to make some bee stuff with, but I think this may work out really, really, really good. So I'm just taking off the back hanger, the stickers, taking off the little rope hanger piece. And I have a little piece of cookie cutter here, and I'm thinking this, look at that, it fits. Oh, it fits perfectly. So now I have a little stand and somewhere to tuck the battery for the lights in there so it can't be seen. It's all tucked away. You can use some wood glue or some white glue on this. And you don't need to give it a sand, just give it a generous amount of glue. So wood on wood, this is going to seal really nicely with any type of white glue that you have. And let's rock and roll. So what I did want to putting a bit of weight on that to squish it down, but that fits oh so nicely. Okay, so while that is setting, let's go back to our stems here. We're going to do some dry brush painting of some coffee cream, some beige color. And I didn't do a lot of sanding on this one because it is going to be covered here and there with moss and little bits. Now at the base of the stem, I did rough it up while it was drying. I actually used some scissors and just clipped a little bit, as you can see here. And that was just going to help me out. I'm going to add some little dirt here. Just again, just a very, very, very light dry brush. I love that. Just a little bit of texture on it. It's all it's needed. I'm going to add some moss green dry brushing. I am going to be adding some moss to the base of this, so I want a little bit more growth on the bottom. Just a little bit of tester taster. And look at the difference there. So I'll take the one that hasn't been done, and look at that little punch out. It's all it needs. Now the little battery here is going to fit nice quietly inside here. You can glue that down with hot glue if you like, or you can have it loose. Now I do like to turn on the lights when doing this so you can see how everything's going to line up. I would like some mushrooms, a couple of them close together, some farther apart, and I would like some of the fairy lights to be dispersed throughout the piece as well. Now my mom found this at a thrift store. Would you believe this? Hadn't even been opened. So we're going to be using this moss. I have some green moss here too. Not quite sure all what I'm going to use yet, so we'll just have it ready. Okay, so I do have some sticks that I foraged. Some of these are driftwood, some of these are from the forest. I have, this is a beetle-eaten wood piece that I just found recently. You see it in one of my videos. I think that would be a nice little centerpiece throughout these one. Look at the little knots and stuff here. These ones need to be celebrated and used in crafting. This is why I forage throughout the year, so I have sticks for wintertime when there's a blanket of snow outside and I can't get these goodies. Ooh, some bark, some birch bark, some birch paper. We might use that. Oh, maybe. I'll bring that out. Let's see what else we got in here. But I forage for stuff, and all these little pieces are going to help me with projects throughout the winter time. And they're free. They don't cost anything. I like it. So I am going to be hot gluing down. This one's a little perch. I'm using a little piece of birch bark, a little miniature log there to help prop up some wood. I'm going to create kind of like a fallen in the forest and some mushrooms growing up this tree that's a little tree branch that's kind of reaching up. So I think that'll look cool. We're going to use some bark. I would like all kinds of texture in there and colors and whatever you want to forage for and look at and use. It's your piece. Yeah, there we go. There's that fun piece there that I'm thinking needs to be centered. Using a prop piece up there, I think that'll be really cool to have some mushrooms climbing up that stem. And hot glue's your friend. If you have blobs of glue here and there, that's just going to be hidden with some of the birch bark, lichen, or moss that you may have on hand. There we go. That's going to look sweet. So let's play with our lights here now. Gonna find this beginning end, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna fold it down, and just to have a little look here, I'm going to insert it up through the straw. I just want to have a look what it looks like. This is my first little look, and they're gonna be great. This one are being a little bit bent, so I'm just making sure it stand up. We want it just a little bit below the stem line. Enough that it's going to light up the cap but not light up the stem, because you can actually work with the stem and you can lower it right into it, and it'll still light up your cap, but it'll be a little bit dimmer. So a little blob of glue at the top. And then have that your light sticks out, and then pull your light into it and it will lock it in place there. Leaving a light space between each of them. I'm going to do a little repeat there. Again, push the light up, higher, add your blob of glue, and then pull it down where you want it to be. Again, if you want it lower, it's going to light up the stem more. A little bit higher, it's going to light up the cap for you. Now I have some that are farther apart and some that I created side by side, because I do want it to creep up this branch that's fallen in the forest. And then I can just play with different configurations and have a little bit of fun and take your time with this part. Whoop! Oh, I'll leave that. I was going to make an adjustment. Looks like the hot glue pushed it out a little bit, but I almost pinched off all the lights and put them out. This first one was the hardest one to glue, so I was using glue that was really hot, so I was having to hold it there for a few minutes but I was shaking, so it was taking a little while. I'm just gonna put down the wire down the branch, and we're gonna hide that with lichen and moss. And you can just secure all your little stem lights with hot glue. And it doesn't matter how much hot glue you use, as long as they're secure, because you can hide all of it with lichen and moss. And just figuring out where to put it next. I think sometimes you just gotta go. Just don't think about it too much. So I just decided to just throw down a blob of glue, and like, this is where it's gonna live. I do want a staggered piece, because this is the back, so I want it staggered a little bit for the front. And see, like this. That's nice. So now we have wires sticking out here and there. I don't want any wire to be shown. And some of the bottom lights we will embrace, some of them we will cover up. So what I'm going to hit first is a generous amount of hot glue, and you do want to use one of your cooler hot glue guns. Something that's too hot is going to drip down your stem. So something that's a little cooler, that's going to build up a little bit of like a little ice cream cone before you're putting it on. And that'll help keep this cap a little straighter for you as it cools down. Deciding which one looks the best, try to figure it out. I'm gonna go with this one here. Again, generous amount of hot glue, ice cream cone. I am using a cheaper hot glue gun, so it doesn't heat up as much, and again, it won't drip down. This one is on a funky angle, so this doesn't want to stay. And again, generous amount. And I'm only going to go with 2 burgundy on this one. I'm really liking the stamped one. And I think they're going to show off a little bit lighter. But I'm really liking the vintage look of the stamped paper on this. Okay, so we have some of the stems that do light up, and that's cool. Again, we're going to be putting stuff around. Loving the look so far. Even this is super cool. But let's get down to some moss, shall we? I have this lighter stuff that I think will look really cool. It's a little drier than the reindeer moss, so I think this will be something that I'll probably keep out all year round. So to put it away, it may get a little damaged. And I'm just gonna now hide any imperfections, hide glue, hide wires, and do all that first. And then I'm gonna build up my detail. Now I find that little birch log was cut too perfectly. It was for another project, so I decided to hide that with moss, but it's propping up my wood, so I like it there. Now I have some amazing lichen that I foraged for here, and it wound up being the same lichen that was in that bag, so I kind of combined. It's really cool. And I'm going to have this going up the branch tree, using some little twigs to squish it in there. I don't want to see any wood or any of the wood from the bottom of the wood slice cookie. I want it all moss throughout the bottom of the bed there. So just squeezing some in as I go. Using some birch bark here. I love using curly birch bark. So I'm going to be planting some of that throughout this little diorama too. Using the curliest little bits, building it up. Same as with the lichen, moving it back and forward, doing a couple layers. Look like it's actually growing on there. And again, using the lichen to hide the wire. And I need it to, so it doesn't just look like a mushroom sticking out of a branch. It needs a little bit of growth point. So lichen and moss around that top piece there. And I love using that lichen so much. I wound up using it quite a bit throughout this piece. Now we're gonna make it a little bit of Yule winterized decor. Now I'm not going to be gluing in these shiny little sparkly red berries because I would like to use this all year round. So I'm going to be able to take these off. Now you can glue yours on and just use them for Yule, but again I'm going to use mine all year round. So mine, I'm just going to find little homes that they can tuck into and be happy where they live. I definitely like tucking them around little mushrooms, little nooks and crannies, and it just gives me that little extra punch of color. Again, I'm using aquamarines, like a teal, with burgundies and reds for our colors, the color scheme this year. Now I have some magical little flake snow, and I'm gonna not glue this down as well. I could use something else that would give it a snow effect, but again, this is something I can just tip upside down, tip off the snow, and again I got a piece for all year round. Now what to do with these extra stems? Let's make some ornaments for our Yule tree. So around the edges I'm going to secure the straw as well. I'm going to use a bit of moss. I'm going to use actually kind of a greener reindeer moss for this one, because it's moist, so it actually stays a little drier. It's not going to flake out all over my tree too, and I'll be able to reuse these if I'd like to. I think I'm going to use these ornaments in a future craft project this spring or early summer. Alright, so I'm going to use some moss all the way around the edges. Now that's done, we're going to grab some alligator clips here. Now you could use hair clips for this if it's strong enough. And I'm going to use some needle nose pliers here to open up the back of these clips. And then they're going to sit right on the edge of that. I did wind up opening them up a little bit more for my next one, so the glue didn't have to use so much glue. Now I'm going to also use a bit of moss over top of that to hide the bottom and to hide the glue. So that way when it's on the tree branch, you only see a little mushroom growing off of the tree branch at the end of it. I think that'll look pretty sweet. So again, we're going to use 2 needle nose pliers this time, and we're going to make it a little bit easier than using your hand. I don't know if you remember these, but in the 80s we had these clips with leather and feathers hanging off of it. We all had them hanging in our hair. Oh, I love these. I got it in my head I was going to make a whole bunch of them, and then I couldn't find feathers. So I have a bag of these, and I thought these will work perfect for clipping on to my tree branches. There we go. That's nice and flat, and that's going to be easier to attach the stem on there too, and that's going to be easier to clip onto the branch. And then again, we're going to put a little bit of glue at the bottom, and we're going to put some moss there to help hide. Okay, so our next step here, we don't have any lights to contend with, so this should be an easy glue, and it should stay on pretty well and not move around. And there we have it. So these ones don't have lights in them, but if you position them behind lights on the tree, they will glow up for you. And there we have it, your extra mushrooms. You have some mushroom decor. Let's look at the reveal. So without the lights on, let's look at our little piece of the forest winter mushroom decor. Let's turn on our lights and look at it light up. It is so precious. I'm so happy how this turned out. Let me know in the comments down below if this is something that you would love to make and what colors you would use. I would love to hear about that. I love the little shiny punch of red. It just mixes it right up. I love the beetle-eaten wood with all the lines and the stem coming up. I think it adds to the character of the piece. Looking at the mushroom ornaments for your tree, easy to put on, not with one hand. But thank you so very much for hanging out with me today, and as always, I wish you an absolutely magical day.